joining hands together at the mosques today. And yet there are many Americans who fear Islam and what it represents.
I believe they fear Islam because of people like Pastor Terry Jones, who are working on their paranoia, who are making monster out of Islam. I would respectfully ask Pastor Terry Jones to go and read the Quran instead of burning the Quran. And he will be amazed and surprised on the commonalities that exist between Islam and Christianity. The problem is Pastor Jones has not read the Quran. He has no knowledge of the Quran. Therefore, he's trying to make a monster out of the Quran, and by that he is terrifying Americans from Islam, and by telling them that Islam is the danger. Now, no one is denying that there are radicals in Islam, as there are radicals in Christianity. I consider him one of the radicals in Christianity. We have people like Timothy McVeigh, who killed hundreds of innocent people in Oklahoma 10, 15 years ago in the name of Jesus. We have people who committed all kinds of heinous crimes in the name of church and in the name of Jesus, peace be upon him. Would I hold Christianity responsible for their acts? No, of course no. I'm not going to do that, because I understand in every faith there is a fringe group who may use religion for their own interest, and Islam is no exception. Why I would hold 1.5 billion Muslims responsible for the act of a small fringe group that has been distorting Islam? We all agree that there are people who have hijacked Islam and gave it a bad name, but that doesn't mean Islam should be held responsible for them. So I would invite Pastor Jones to learn about Quran, learn about Islam, and just be able to distinguish between those fringe groups who in no way would represent the mainstream Islam, and a divine faith that has so much to offer to this world and to humanity. The divine faith that speaks highly of Christianity and Judaism. We in our religion, we believe if someone does not believe in Jesus, does not believe in Moses, he cannot claim to be Muslim. So in order for you to be a true Muslim, you have to embrace Jesus and his message. You have to embrace Moses and his message. And it seems that Pastor Jones does not get that. Now, I want to go back to the Sharia law that he's been talking about. We asked him, how does he define the Sharia law? He said he thinks that Sharia law is the brutal punishment. Now, what brutal punishment he's talking about? Is he speaking about the stoning? Now let me, for his reference, the stoning was mentioned in the Bible, not in the Quran. There is a reference to the stoning in the Bible, not in the Quran. Now, if he's talking about what Taliban rule did in Afghanistan 15 years ago when they were stoning people, well, Taliban does not represent Islam. Everyone knows that the Taliban rule does not represent the spirit of Islam. I am someone who numerous times condemned what Taliban did against people in Afghanistan, and I said that these people are self-declared religious leaders who are not recognized by the mainstream Islam. So he cannot also hold Islam responsible for the act of Taliban in Afghanistan when they were stoning people. Here in America, we have 6 million Muslims. I challenge Pastor Jones, if he can bring me one Muslim in the United States who would say that we are not abided by the U.S. laws. All these Muslims are abided by the U.S. laws. So if let me ask him this question: if there is a reference to the stoning in the Bible, does that mean the Christian in the United States now are calling for implementing stoning in the United States? This is, I think, a wrong analogy. So I believe that his understanding of the Sharia law is definitely distorted. He does not have accurate understanding of what he is telling people, what he is talking about. He can demonstrate against radical Islam. That's his right. He can do that, and he is entitled to do that. But I also would like to ask him, as I always do, when I talk about extremism and radicalism in other faiths, I would condemn radicalism and extremism in my faith first. So he has to do the same thing. When he talks about radicals and that he needs to rally people against radical Islam, would he also do the same thing by rallying people against radical Christians? Would he tolerate those who would go and blow up abortion clinics here? What he would call them? Aren't these radicals? Why he would not speak against them? Why he chose to be silent about those radicals who call themselves Christians, but he only chose to attack those who call themselves radicals in Islam? So I think this is double standard, and someone who calls himself pastor or religious leader, he has to take the higher ground.
Let me ask both of you, what do you call someone who straps a bomb to himself to kill innocent people? Do you call them martyrs or do you call them killers?
I call them murderer. The Quran called these people murderer. The Quran that Pastor Terry Jones burned 3 weeks ago calls these people murderer. And the Quran is very clear that if you kill one innocent person, you will be viewed by God as if you have killed the entire mankind. So of course someone who kills other innocent people, he is viewed as a murderer in the eyes of God. And by the way, I would like to take this opportunity to condemn the killings that took place in Afghanistan 3 weeks ago when Pastor Terry Jones burned the Quran. But I want to say one thing. When Pastor Terry Jones burned the Quran, those who committed that crime, and I unequivocally condemn that attack, it was carried out by lunatic Muslims. By lunatic Muslims. These people are not normal people. These people were lunatics. But who pushed them to do that? Someone who calls himself pastor, someone who calls himself a religious leader. He pushed them to do that. So yes, I agree that there is blood on his hand for pushing these lunatics to kill those innocent people at the United Nations headquarters in Afghanistan. And I hold him also partially responsible for these killings.
Right.
Okay. Reverend Jones, your response.
Yeah, sure. Since 9/11, there's been over 17,000 successful terrorist attacks. I mean, to hold us responsible for what someone does 7,000 miles away is totally ridiculous. You can see that in our own American history. In recent history, we had the movement by Martin Luther King Jr. During that movement, many people were killed, but nobody would say it was Martin Luther King Jr.'s fault. I think that the Imam, I think the problem there is that they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. In other words, they talk all this peace, but see, there's really no proof of that. Because like as he said, in America right now you have 7 million, you have 9 million. So of course here in America, as long as they are in the minority, of course, what are they going to say? We want to rise up, we want to take over, Islam means submission, world domination. Is that what they're going to say?
He's not saying that.
I didn't say did. I said they. Is that what they're going to say? No. You look at Muslim-dominated countries. See, it's not important. It's not important what a minority says in a country, as long as that minority is a minority. It is important what
you're a minority and you're speaking and no one stopped you. Muslims can do the same.
It is important what a minority does when it becomes a majority. How does it then treat the minority under them? And in Islam-dominated countries, in Quran-dominated countries, we do not see this peace, peace, peace.
But is this what you are doing the way to treat minorities in this country? I'm not so sure it is. We'll be back with more of this discussion. Still to come on Let It Rip. It's time to hear from you, the Fox 2 viewers. This is a very emotional issue for so many people. We're going to read some of your comments when Let It Rip continues. The Fox 2 viewers continue to sound off at myfoxdetroit.com. One viewer writes, "Don't like it, don't listen, but don't you dare try to take it away. Too many people died for this right." Another blogger says, "If he is truly a man of God, then he would be looking for peace, not trying to create riots. Go back to Florida. We don't want it here." Fox 2 viewer Marie says, "It is nothing but a publicity hound. Jones is ignorant about how culturally and religiously diverse our area is." Alicia King writes, "I'm a Christian woman, but I would not burn their holy book, just as I would not want mine burned. There is something called respect. This man comes to Michigan to stir up trouble, and the kind of trouble that has severe consequences." Reverend Rowe, you heard Reverend Jones compare himself to Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I think it's blasphemy. I think it's an absolute lie, and it's a lie on Jesus and not just on Martin Luther King and what he died for. He was nonviolent. The act of burning the Koran was a violent act. He can't duck that. The people who died, and he knew that that violence was going to happen. I think the blood is on his hands. And for him to even say the word Martin Luther King and the nonviolent movement that had to do with Martin Luther King is simply blasphemy. And, you know, it's Islamophobia. It's just right up there with racism. I tell you, this man is lying about Christianity, he's lying about Martin Luther King, and he's lying about Islam. He's not just burning the Koran, he burned the Sermon on the Mount. He burned everything I believe in when he did that, and everything that Imam believes in, and everything that Judaism believes in. And he sits here trying to protect us from a force that doesn't exist. Can you name one neighborhood in this city or in this country that is Sharia law? Can you name one person who is under Sharia law? I can't, and he can't either. He has created a fear that has nothing to be afraid of, and so that he can get attention. And we're here because the media is going to cover it, whether we're here or not.
Tomorrow, though, no matter what the message is, let him sink his own ship if he's so bad. Should he be able to speak tomorrow? That's the issue for the judge.
Nobody is saying that he can't speak. All we're saying
him.
is that what he's saying is a lie.
Okay, but here's the thing. You can settle this night now. On Let It Rip. You can agree to tomorrow go into the mosque, join hands with the imam and the people there, and to rally for peace.
He'll never do
Will
that.
you try to do that?
Of course he
instead of denouncing Islam tomorrow?
How could he finally do that?
No, we will not. But we can invite him to come and join us against terrorism, against the radical element, against whatever he wants to call it. He can come and join us because he is
the imam is against terrorism.
Oh, good that he can come.
Why
and
are you
join
at a
us
place
then.
of peace?
We thank you
protesting
all.
something that doesn't exist.
We thank you all for being here. We thank you for your insights, and we thank you for watching. As always,
This man is insane.
We thank you for watching this edition of Let It Rip.